You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, writer for USA Today for various SEC-related things, but on this podcast specifically, we take a dive into all things Kentucky athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by NetSuite. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. Head to netsuite.com/LockedOnNCAA for special end-of-the-year financing on the #1 financial system for growing businesses. On today's episode, we're going to talk about a variety of things. We're going to talk about the point guard situation for Kentucky. We're also going to talk about Kentucky's next 5 games, one of the more brutal stretches of the entire slate for the Wildcats, and then to wrap things up, we're going to do something new. This is something that I want to try and do every single Thursday or Friday from here on out. At least for the rest of basketball season, is I want to do some player power rankings. I want to give the 3, not necessarily the best players on Kentucky's team, but we're going to do it over the span of the past 2 games, and we're going to evaluate everybody's minutes. We're going to evaluate who is playing the best, at least over the past span of the last 2 games. So let's go ahead and get into it here. Starting off at the top here with Kentucky's point guard situation. This was a question that I asked in yesterday's show. We were breaking down Kentucky's win over Vanderbilt, and I want to state again that I was only 4 points off of that final score prediction. Hate to flex, but again, I'll take what I can get. We were talking about the point guard situation with Sahvir Wheeler being out, right? And we were talking about TyTy Washington running the point now for the Wildcats, and we were asking the question, is Kentucky's offense better with TyTy Washington running the point? And I want to go ahead and actually pull it up for you here on Twitter. If you're not following us on Twitter already, you can follow the show on Twitter at LockedOnUK. And I told you all about this on yesterday's show, and the results are in. I put out a poll and I said, true or false, Kentucky is a better basketball team with TyTy Washington at the point. 61 votes now. 52% of you think that is false. 48% of you think that it is true. So it's interesting there, the split. I don't necessarily have a strong opinion either way. I think it's interesting to see the contrast between the two offenses whenever they are run by different players. But I just want to kind of take a dive into some of the basic numbers here, and then just to talk about what player brings to the table, what each player brings to the table, because I don't necessarily think that there's a right answer to this. I think that both players bring different things that the other doesn't, and overall I think it's great to have them both on roster, especially if you can rotate them out. And it's a shame that Sahvir Wheeler is not healthy right now and he's not able to get these minutes in the SEC. I know he's gotten them in the past, but this is with a completely new team, and so it's a shame that he's not getting those minutes, but TyTy is. So let's just go over some of the statistics from TyTy running the point over the past 2 games. So, like I mentioned, he's gotten 2 games, Georgia and Vanderbilt. Georgia is 280th in defensive efficiency, and Vanderbilt is 58th in defensive efficiency. So Kentucky's kind of gotten the best of both worlds in terms of the defenses that they face. They've gotten a defense that knows how to put pressure on the point guard, and they've gotten a defense that doesn't know how to put pressure on quite literally anything. So it's not like Kentucky's been playing 2 bad defenses while TyTy's been at the point. In fact, Kentucky's only played 2 teams this season with a better defensive efficiency than Vanderbilt. Can you guess them? I'll give you a second. It's Duke and LSU, and if you thought of those 2 teams, you were correct. Congratulations. TyTy Washington over the span of these 2 games against Georgia and Vanderbilt, averaging 16 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, and 10.5 assists per game. That 10.5 assists per game mark is largely boosted by the fact that he had 17 assists against Georgia. Again, that is a school record for assists in a game. You can compare those numbers to his season averages. So 16 points a game over these past 2 games. He's averaging 13.7 points per game on the year. 4.5 rebounds per game as opposed to his 4.3 on the year. The rebounds don't necessarily matter to me. I'm just talking specifically TyTy growing as a player individually. And then 4.8 assists per game as opposed to the 10.5 that he's averaging currently. This next game against Tennessee is probably going to bump that mark down quite a bit. Again, 17 assists. 17 assists against Georgia definitely boosted TyTy's numbers. But you look at those numbers just over 2 games alone, and like I mentioned a second ago, his growth as an individual player has, he's grown. He's definitely taking steps in the right direction now that he's gotten to pilot the offense over these past 2 games. Looking at some of the overall season totals here, Kentucky's averaging 82.6 points per game, shooting 46.9% from the floor, and averaging 17.4 assists per game. Over the past 2 matchups with TyTy Washington running the point, they have exceeded numbers in all 3 of those statistical categories. So 82.6 points on the season as opposed to the 85 Kentucky is averaging over the past 2 games. 46.9% from the floor on the year. Over these past 2 games, Kentucky's averaging 54.8 field goal percentage, which is very, very solid. And then they are also averaging 19 assists per game as opposed to the 17.4 that they are averaging on the year. So TyTy has grown. The offense is growing. And you look at that 78 points that Kentucky scored against Vanderbilt last game, and I know it wasn't necessarily like the most impressive offensive performance, but I'm going to be honest with you, outside of the 2 stretches in that matchup, the 4.5-minute stretch in the first half where there was an 11-0 run, and then there was a second half run where it was a 16-0 run by Vanderbilt, the offense was incredibly efficient in that game. And I don't want to, like I said on yesterday's show, I don't want to just kind of excuse and say, whatever, about a 16-0 run at the end of the game, but that game was won. It was quite literally a 28-point lead. It was getting very close to 30, and Kentucky stopped trying, and I don't necessarily blame them for doing so. Like I mentioned yesterday, there is something to be said for, wanting to keep a lead and wanting to keep your foot on the gas. There's also something that needs to be said for making sure your players don't get hurt and that your players are conditioned well enough to perform in the next game. And the next game is against a solid Tennessee basketball squad. By the way, on tomorrow's show, we're going to have Sean Vinzel of Hoops Insight on the show to help break down that matchup. Going to get real nerdy. Going to be a lot of statistics thrown out there. It's going to be a lot of fun. You don't want to miss that episode. But point being, here, just talking about the season totals for Kentucky, talking about what they did last game, talking about the 92 that they scored against Georgia. Overall, I think the offense has been flowing very well. I think that you look at these 2 games, and you may need a larger sample size with TyTy at the point to truly determine whether or not the offense is better with him. And again, I don't necessarily have a strong opinion on this either way. I just want to point everything out, and I think it's objective. You look at the numbers, the offense has been doing good things with TyTy. Whether those are better or worse on film than with Wheeler running the point is up for you to decide. Let's talk here for a second about what both these point guards bring to the table. Let's start with Sahvir Wheeler. What he brings to the table is handles. He's got great handles. He brings better opportunities to score in transition. I strongly believe that Wheeler is a better transition point guard than TyTy. I think he gets up and down the court quicker. I think he gets to the rim quicker. And not to say that TyTy Washington's bad. I think we saw some great things against Georgia and Vanderbilt. The defensive intensity for Wheeler is definitely there. He's averaging almost 1.5 steals per contest. And I talked about this on yesterday's show. For a guy that's listed at 5'7", you do not realize just how physically intense he can be, especially if you start to fall asleep a little bit, bringing the ball up the floor. Wheeler will pick your pocket. And then final thing here that Wheeler does well is distribute the basketball. He's averaging 7.3 assists per game before his injury. And so those are all the things that Wheeler does well. And again, not to say that he's a bad point guard. I think he's a great player. I think he's a great point guard. He's not a shooter, only shooting 17.4% from 3 right now. But he definitely has done a lot of good things for this Kentucky basketball club. What Washington brings to the table as a point guard, I think he brings scoring, which also goes hand in hand with the distribution of the basketball, only almost 5 assists per contest. And whenever you can score as a point guard, that's really, really hard to stop as an opposing team, especially with the talent that surrounds TyTy at the point. It's very difficult to prepare for that because if you can score and you have to prepare for somebody that could dish out 17 assists on a given night, makes it really hard to gel as a defense and try and get in rhythm as a defense. You're always on your toes. You're always looking for the next pass. You're always looking to make sure that he doesn't pull up from mid-range and knock it down on you. Very, very tough to guard. Better opportunities in the half court. In my opinion, TyTy Washington is a better half-court point guard than Wheeler is. Just just after watching him for two games, the way that he's able to get the ball inside to Tshiebwe, I think he's a better half-court distributor of the basketball. He's also a shooter, unlike Wheeler. He's shooting 40.4% from three. And this necessarily isn't a good thing or a bad thing for your point guard. Scoring is one thing, shooting is another, in my opinion. And it's great that he's able to shoot that well from downtown, but it's not necessarily needed out of the point guard position. It's just something that he possesses. So those are what those 2 point guards do well. And that's just kind of an assessment of the Kentucky offense. Again, over these past 2 games, it's gotten I wouldn't necessarily, it's better than what the season averages are. And if we get a little bit more of a sample size with TyTy at the point against a really good Tennessee team on Saturday, then I think we'll start to get more of an idea of whether or not there is some truth to he and the offense are both performing better whenever he's running at the point. All right, we're going to talk about the brutal stretch that awaits Kentucky basketball down the road in just a second. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about our friends at NetSuite. Picture this. This is it, the putt to win the tournament. And if you sink it, the championship is yours. But on your backswing, your hat falls over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? Poor visibility because you're still relying on spreadsheets and outdated finance software? To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. With visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR, planning, budgeting, and more, NetSuite is everything you need to grow, and it's all in one place. With NetSuite, you can automate your processes and close your books in no time while staying well ahead of your competition. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite, and for the new year, NetSuite has a new financing program for those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com/locked. Head to netsuite.com/locked for this special one-of-a-kind financing offer on the #1 financial system for growing businesses. Again, that's netsuite.com/locked. All right, continuing along here on the Thursday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everybody that we are free and available on all podcast platforms. All right, a really, really difficult stretch coming up here for Kentucky basketball, and I wanted to highlight it because if the Wildcats start to lose some games and they start to lose some momentum, I don't want fans to think that this just came out of the blue. I don't want people to blame it on the fact that, Sahvir Wheeler's out. Not saying that you will, just saying I don't want it to happen. And let's just go ahead and look at these 5 games. Number 22, Tennessee at home. The Wildcats will then travel on the road to Texas A&M. They will play at number 4, Auburn. They will then play Mississippi State at home, and then they will play at number 6, Kansas. So we're just going to break down these 5 games here real quick, briefly. I just wanted to give fans an idea of what is coming up. And if Wheeler is not back for these games, again, it's great. It's a great complementary system that the Wildcats have at the point guard position between Wheeler and Washington. If Wheeler is not back for these next 5 games, it's going to be really, really brutal. So first game up here, number 22, Tennessee at home. We're going to be breaking this game down tomorrow in full detail with Sean Vinzel of Hoops Insight. Don't want to miss it. KenPom gives Kentucky a 66% chance to win this game. The Vols are 11-4, 2-2 in the SEC. They've lost 2 of their last 4 games on a little bit of a slide, but what has kept them in these matchups so far is the fact that they are only allowing 60.7 points per game. Their defense has been incredibly strong. They beat number 6 Arizona just a couple of weeks ago. That was at Tennessee, though. And they rank 6 in the top 30, or they rank in the top 30 of 6 of the 12 major statistical categories on KenPom. They're second in the nation in defensive efficiency, right behind LSU. That's going to be a very difficult matchup at home, especially if Wheeler's not back. Because if they clamp down on either one of 2 things, Oscar Tshiebwe or TyTy, if they put Tshiebwe in foul trouble, we've got an issue. We've had a huge issue, and that could be a struggle. On the road at Texas A&M. Now, you may be saying to yourself, Lance, why are we talking about Texas A&M basketball here? That should be a win, even though it's on the road. Who cares? Well, if you've not been following closely, Texas A&M currently right now is 14-2. They are 3-0 in the SEC, and while Kentucky still has a 69% chance to win that game, they got a nice chance to win it. The Aggies have been on a little bit of a tear, actually. They've won 7 straight games. They're averaging 12.3 points per game higher than they were a year ago, getting close to 80 per contest right now in conference play. And they are 19th nationally in 3-point field goal percentage at 38.2%. So they're offensively efficient, way more than they were last year. They've got a lot of returning pieces as well. They've won 7 straight. They're hot, and they've not lost a game in the Southeastern Conference. That's on the road at Texas A&M. The fact that Kentucky almost has a 70% chance to win this matchup kind of surprises me. Speaking of matchups that could not surprise me, at number 4, Auburn. Kentucky only has a 37% chance to win this game. That does not surprise me. The Tigers are 15-1 right now, 4-0 in the SEC. They have not lost a game since November 24th. That was a 115-109 double overtime loss to UConn, a game that UConn literally shot the lights out of the gym. It was a contest that you stepped away from. And it's like neither of these teams are going to shoot the basketball as well as they did ever. Like it was just insane what was going on that day. A lot of offense. Auburn also has arguably the number 1 overall pick in the 2022 NBA draft, and Jabari Smith shooting about 45% both from 2 and from 3 right now as a 6'10" forward, averaging almost 16 points a game. Has been a very, very, very powerful piece for the Tigers offensively and defensively. And Auburn has also already beaten Alabama and LSU. So it's going to be a really difficult matchup in Auburn Arena. All right, 4th game here at home against Mississippi State. This is the easiest game of these 5-game stretch according to KenPom. Wildcats have an 83% chance to win this game. Bulldogs are 10-4, 1-1 in the SEC. And this, personally to me, while it may be the easiest game, so to speak, I don't think that I don't think that Kentucky matches up well with Mississippi State. The Bulldogs have an 11.1 rebounding margin, a positive 11.1 rebounding margin, which is absolutely insane. They have a potential SEC Player of the Year candidate on their roster in their point guard, Iverson Molinar, who is averaging 16.8 points per game, 4.3 assists per game, and 3.4 rebounds per game. Those are some great numbers for a point guard. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I think that the Bulldogs match up well with the Wildcats. Defensively, they're sound. They've got a lot of different pieces on offense than just Iverson Molinar. They've got Garrison Brooks, transfer from North Carolina. They've got DJ Jeffries, transfer from Memphis. Rocket Watts, I don't know if he's fully healed from his injury, but that's a transfer from Michigan State that Kentucky will definitely be taking a look at. And last time these two teams matched up, Mississippi State won. And you may be saying, well, Lance, that was the 2020 season, 2020-2021 year. Who cares that Kentucky lost in the SEC tournament game to an iffy Mississippi State team? It was a fluke year. The past years have been a fluke. I would argue that some people might have said the same thing about the Notre Dame game heading into it this year. That's just my opinion on it. All right, final game here. At number 6, Kansas. This is going to be tough. 37% chance to win this game for the Wildcats. The Jayhawks are 13-2. They are 17th nationally in points per game. They've got a kid averaging over 20 points per game. I believe his name is pronounced Ochai Agbaji, I believe is how you pronounce his name. I probably just absolutely butchered it. If you can't tell, I'm bad with pronouncing names. And they are also top 35 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. Top 35 offensive and defensive efficiency are the Jayhawks. That is going to be incredibly tough. So you look there, you've got a top 25 team at home. Then you go on the road to a 14-2 squad. You play on the road at the number 4 team in the country. This time next week, they may be number 1. Then you play at home against a Mississippi State team that plays sound defense and has some star players. And then you're on the road at number 6 Kansas. This is an incredibly difficult stretch for Kentucky. If they go 3-2, I will be very pleased. If they go 2-3, I'll be like, all right, whatever. I don't expect anything less than 2-3. I expect more. I expect a better record than that. But there's opportunity for Kentucky to really, really struggle over these next 5 games. And I just want people to be aware of it. All right. Player power rankings. We were talking about it to begin the show. We're going to break down the 3 players that are playing the best for the Wildcats right now in just a second. But before we do that, I want to tell you about our friends at Get Upside. All right, Kentucky fans, here's an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about. It's called Get Upside. If you have Get Upside, as all Locked On Kentucky listeners should, then you will be making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time you fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and use promo code SCORE and get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill-up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and again, use promo code SCORE to get up to 50 cents a gallon cash back on your first tank. Today's episode is also brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the college bowl season, which is now officially over, and the pro football playoffs, which start this weekend, and I could not simply be more excited. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, wrapping up the Thursday edition of Locked On Kentucky here. Again, really appreciate you guys sticking around. If you made it this far in the YouTube video or the podcast, really appreciate you listening and watching. 3 players in the power rankings for the Kentucky Wildcats this week. Again, we're going to try and do this every single Thursday, and it's going to be evaluation of the past 2 games for the Wildcats because you get about 2 games a week. Power rankings, 3 players that are playing the best for the Wildcats right now. We're going to start at number 3 and work our way up. Number 3 is Davion Mintz. And I know that there's probably a player right now that is scoring more than Mintz is right now, but he's averaging 14 points a game over the past 2 matchups, 2 assists, and he's shooting 66.7% from 3. This is a guy that has been floating around on roster for quite some time. He was one of the leaders on last year's squad. He's a bit of a reserve, a role player this year. And with the absence of Sahvir Wheeler, he has really stepped up and let TyTy perform as a point for the most part, and Mintz has really slotted in well as a shooting guard. 5 of 7, I believe he was against Georgia, and he was 3 of 5 against Vanderbilt from downtown. Those are great numbers. And we here on the show have talked so much about how role players should play. They should not play like starters. You should not expect them to play like starters. This is why they're sitting on the bench to begin the game. But they should be efficient. When you get a guy like Davion Mintz that has the experience that he has, he should be efficient. Now, should he be shooting 67% from 3 on a given night? Every single game? No. I'm not saying he should even average that. But it's great to see efficiency like this. It's great to see numbers like this. And so I encourage it. I think he's playing the 3rd best on Kentucky's roster right now. Number 2, TyTy Washington in the power rankings. 16 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, 10.5 assists per game. We mentioned everything essentially about him in the first segment, talking about how the offense is running well right now. There seems to be great pace, great flow to the game, at least offensively for the Wildcats right now. Washington has a variety of things that he can do with the basketball. He can distribute it. He can shoot the 3. He can pull up. He can make great. He's got a great layup package. And he can also get the ball down to Oscar Tshiebwe, who was our number 1 player in the power rankings this week. 29.5 points per game over the past 2 matchups for Tshiebwe. Again, I want to repeat that. Over the past 2 games, Tshiebwe is averaging 29.5 points per game. Cannot understate that. He's also averaging 15 rebounds per game and shooting 64.8% from the floor. He is quickly becoming... he's quickly becoming one of the best Wildcats to ever do it. And I don't necessarily think that you put him up there with guys like AD or anything like that, or John Wall or any of those players from the 2000s, right? But he's quickly, statistically, becoming one of the more dominant players that Kentucky's ever had, and at least Coach Cal has ever had. And I'm not saying that he is, or I'm not saying that he's close to the top 5, but he's definitely making his mark on Wildcat history. And I think that it's really important as students, as fans of the program, we need to appreciate this stuff while it lasts, because we don't know what's coming down the road. There is no tomorrow, right? There is no guaranteed win against Tennessee. There is no guarantee down the road that we're going to sustain success as a program. And so it's really important when you see a guy scoring 30 points a game over the past 2 games, and it's just out of his mind in terms of what he's capable of doing on the offensive end as a forward. you've got to be able to stop and take a moment and say, that's special, and we may not see something like that again for a very long time. And you may say, well, Kentucky gets guys like that all the time, but we may never see it again. There's no guarantee. This right here, Oscar Tshiebwe, what he's doing is something special. Something really, really special. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_. You can follow the show on Instagram at Kentucky Podcast. We're going to be previewing Kentucky versus Tennessee tomorrow. It's going to be a great matchup. Sean Vinzel, Hoops Insight. He's going to join us. You do not want to miss it. I will see you all then. Have a good day, and God bless.